if we can't really rely on the nuclear family to do it, then it behooves us to figure out other ways of doing it. If the nuclear family can't always be the nuclear family that we want it to be, that we idealize it at, then we have a responsibility as a society to figure out ways of nurturing kids so that they don't become victimized of a dysfunctional family.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, so if someone's sitting here going, "Yes, this is it. We need to do this." How do they go from there? Like, what are some ideas you might have about that?
Well, I think, well, one thing, I'm at this stage of my life where I am interested in collaboration. So if people want to contact me, I mean, the meter doesn't go on, the cash register doesn't go on. I mean, I'm happy to talk to people about these kind of, and if there's a community out there that, wants to pay my airfare and give me a hotel room, I'm, happy to do that. I mean, so to talk about, I mean, it needs a little bit more than just a half hour,
Right.
interview. But there are a lot of ways that we can learn about how to pursue these kinds of mechanisms and methods, and we can get started with it. And really, what it takes, I think, for a community to go forward is to identify a core group of stakeholders that consist of people interested in research, policymakers, and people who work with kids. And it could be a handful of kids, like Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that it ever has. I mean, so if you get a small group of people together that want to do something, and then, create this momentum where you can have a conference or a meeting. And I mean, I've done it in communities, and I did it in the whole country of New Caledonia. We ignited the whole country to do this by starting out with a small group of people that wanted to have public talks about it. And then we got people mobilized, and it can be done. So it takes a small group of people to have the initiative to put together, some conferences about this, and then have people get bigger and bigger, and then it reaches a critical mass, and then before you know it, something is being done.
Well, and I was just thinking about what you said about in Iceland, it's the parents who are just kind of out in the streets after curfew and just kind of connecting with the kids, so it's not an arrest process. They're
No,
not.
it's nothing like, it's not like, reefer madness where, people are going to go to hell if they use a drug.
Right.
It's compassion and caring and understanding and warmth, and somehow shepherding people to the right place. It's more like shepherding rather than coercing. So
Right.
that's how it is. Um, but yeah, it takes parent groups. The school is a good ally in this. I mean, the school didn't cause these problems, and it didn't. It's not going to solve these problems, but it's a good way of bringing people together. So when you have the school is able to, yes, agree to have questionnaires administered, so you find out what's going on in the school, and then you can then reach out to the parents because they have connections to the parents. So the school can become a hub where a lot of this kind of beginning position can take place.
Yeah.
And another thing that's important, Lynn, is the local nature of this. I mean, one lesson I learned from Project Self Discovery. I collaborated with a remarkable African American dance choreographer named Cleo Parker Robinson, and people trusted her, and they trusted me, and they brought their kids to us, and we had these thousands of kids. But not every community has a Cleo Parker Robinson and a Harvey Milkman. So, what do you have in your community? So, it has to be local people who have charisma and have relationships that are meaningful to the kids in that community. So, it's local, and you use the local talent to figure out how to manage what kind of alternatives you're going to give the kids and who's reaching out to them. The other thing about local, we have a statement in Iceland that I think is very helpful, is that the data is like fresh vegetables. It has to be local and it has to be delivered rapidly. You can't store it up for like 6 months. A lot of times when we do surveys, it takes a year or 2 years before it even, if it ever gets to the people who are working with these kids. Usually it stays in the ivory tower in some journal somewhere. So it has to be fresh and it has to be local and it has to be disseminated because conditions change very quickly. What's happening in Nova Scotia, I promise you, is very different than what's happening in Montreal, what's happening in
Right.
Toronto, or in neighborhoods in Toronto or Montreal. So It has to be, you have to think about the local conditions and then apply remedies within the capacity and the specific risk and protective factors in those local communities. And that's how it works.
Welcome to the 2021 Radical Recovery Summit, presented by the Kiloby Center for Recovery. This is Lynn Fraser, your moderator. This year, our theme is Feel It, Heal It, a new paradigm of recovery, featuring a diverse group of thought leaders and innovators, people who are working on the ground in the new field of addiction recovery. Go to radicalrecoverysummit.com to sign up and watch free.